True ambassadors of art and true ambassadors also of humanity. I introduce to you with her accompanist France group, Miss Marian Anderson.
The nuclear energy has been the backbone that has sustained the economy through a very, very difficult time, which is the hardest any country can have, which is war. We have been visiting 9 stations that are critical for the functioning and the safe functioning of the nuclear power plants. And of course, the situation is quite dire. We've chosen Lipetska because of its importance in terms of the functioning of the grid here in Ukraine. It has a strategic value, and as we see, it has been damaged quite significantly. We are, of course, aware of this project about Khmelnytsky 3 and 4, 2 units that one has to say have started, the construction has started. In the case of the 3rd unit, 80%, as I learned today, of the construction is completed. In the case of the 4th unit, 25%. So there is quite an effort and an investment that has already been done. The agency is, of course, ready, and we have already started some analytical work on the specific areas where we could provide a safety assessment.
Child trafficking is rising at an alarming rate, demanding immediate action. A child is sold, exploited, and lost to a system that thrives on silence. And the numbers? Despite ongoing efforts, they are worse than ever. According to the latest global report on trafficking in persons, children now make up 38% of all detected victims worldwide. That's a significant increase from just a few years ago, especially among girls. And the real number, it's likely much higher. Many cases go unreported, and countless child victims remain invisible. Why is this happening? Because children's vulnerabilities are growing. More children are being displaced, separated from their families, and left without protection. Right now, 47.2 million children are displaced due to conflict and violence. Another 3.1 million have been forced to flee because of natural disasters. And when protective systems break down, traffickers step in. Trafficking in children is a low-risk, high-profit crime. It's growing, it's organized, and it's evolving. Traffickers make billions of dollars every year. In 2024, the International Labour Organization, ILO, estimated that forced labor generates $236 billion annually, a 37% increase from just a decade ago. At the same time, traffickers are harder to catch. They use online platforms, encrypted transactions, and cryptocurrency to stay hidden. There's also a growing demand for child exploitation, both online and offline. An estimated 1.7 million children are in situations of forced sexual exploitation. Others are trafficked for domestic work, mining, agriculture, and street vending, hidden in supply chains around the world. Criminal groups are now targeting children for forced criminality, recruiting them into drug trafficking and other crimes. And while traffickers operate freely, many child victims end up punished instead of protected. So, what's being done? Governments, UN agencies, and law enforcement groups are working to stop trafficking networks. Organizations are trying to protect children on the move, strengthen laws, and prosecute traffickers. But it's not enough. Too many traffickers still go free. Too many child victims never receive support. If we don't act now, these numbers will only keep rising. But there is a way forward. To end child trafficking, we must act on 3 critical areas, among others. Protect children and reduce their vulnerabilities. We must tackle the growing demand and the misuse of digital technologies, cutting off exploitation at its source. And we must build a justice system that is fair and child-friendly. We need to hold perpetrators accountable and end impunity for this crime to deter traffickers. ICAT Call to Action provides evidence-based solutions on how to prevent and end child trafficking. Child survivors' experiences and suggestions shall inform solutions and responses. Every child deserves safety, justice, and a future free from exploitation. It starts with us. Share this video, talk about it, and help stop child trafficking before it's too late to deter.
Today, we're here to mark an important milestone, the 10th anniversary of Resolution 2250 on youth peace and security. Young people are not bystanders in conflict. They are leaders, they are partners, and they are problem solvers.
When we talk about youth, peace, and security, it can sound like policy language. But for me, coming from Afghanistan, those words carry weight. I'm a young leader for the SDGs, for the United Nations, because I believe in the power of youth and I believe in age not being a limitation to bringing change. I started my journey of activism at 14, and I think it can start as early as when you learn how to walk. When we talk about youth,
young people
peace,
are
and
facing
security,
a lot of
it can
challenges
sound like
related
policy
to
language.
peace and security.
But for me,
For example,
coming from
in my own
Afghanistan,
country, a
those
lot of
words
people
carry weight.
have displaced
I'm a young leader for
there's
the
a lot of
SDGs,
violence against
for the
violence
United
that
Nations,
affect young
because
people.
I
I think
believe
young
in the
people
power
should
of
be
youth,
part of the
and I
solution.
believe in age not being a limitation.
I believe the young
to
people are not only the
I started
future,
my
but we're
journey of
also
activism
the
at 14,
ones who are doing
and I
things
think
for
it
better
can
today.
start.
In a world where half of the world's population is under 30 years old, it's critical that we bring these voices into the stages where we are deciding about the future and the present of peace and security.
We need young people at the peace table to rebuild their communities, their societies after a war, and to demand peace.
Youth are a crucial part of the world. Youth are a significant population of the world. So you cannot ensure peace and security without such a significant population. Youth are the backbone of the country.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa Fleming, Undersecretary General for Global Communications here at the United Nations, and it's great to be with you here from the SDG Media Zone here at the United Nations headquarters at the 80th session of the General Assembly. We have outstanding panelists to welcome today on a session around solutions journalism, and we're going to get to hear all about what exactly is solutions journalism and how it's being applied. We have journalists and communicators representing diverse media organizations from around the world. I really thank you all for being here. I'm going to introduce you in a moment, but just a few words to kind of frame our discussion first. As we know, and as we are hearing in speech after speech here at the General Assembly, the world is facing mounting crises. We have wars and conflict and climate change. We have economic stress, inequalities, and disinformation and misinformation is underlying a lot of the narratives around these crises. The headlines also are constant and deeply troubling, and it's really no surprise that we are finding in studies and anecdotally that many of the public are just tuning out, right? They're feeling exhausted by all the negativity, and some of them are even saying that they're feeling overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness. But journalism doesn't have to be a consistent drumbeat of doom and gloom. It can also illuminate what's working. And that is where solutions journalism comes in. It is a growing approach that investigates how people and communities are actually responding practically to our challenges. It's evidence-based reporting. It doesn't take anything away from the rigorous reporting that journalists are trained to do, but adds a dimension that we're going to hear about. And that gives people, readers and viewers, reason to hope and reason to believe that change is possible. So as someone who has spent much of my career working to ensure that information people receive is accurate and also that it reaches the public in meaningful ways, I've been aware of two things, and that is people are hungry for facts, but they also do want to know that there is some hope and that there is some way to take action. So today's discussion is going to explore how solutions journalism practices can not only do this, but also build trust in media and deepen understanding of complex issues and even accelerate progress on the goals that we're all trying to work for, the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're going to hear some case studies and experiences and show how journalism can inform but also empower. So because it is our responsibility as journalists, but also I have to say, leading communications at the United Nations, we've adopted solutions journalism in the way we communicate, in our news, in our speeches, in our social media posts. We try not to just leave people hanging with, oh my God, this is terrible. There's nothing that can be done. So let's dive into our discussion, and I'd like to begin by introducing our panel. Thank you very much. You're going to be the first person I introduce, and thank you for picking up my paper. Kayode Akitimi, who is the Managing Director and Editor-in-Chief of the Nigeria News Channel. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
To my right is David Bornstein, the co-founder and CEO of the Solutions Journalism Network. I'm especially pleased to have you here with us today, David. Sandra Coutinho, foreign correspondent of Globo TV from Brazil. Mark Hertzgaard, co-founder and executive director from Covering Climate Now. Caroline Sugg, director of strategy and policy of BBC Media Action. And last but not least, Kyoto Tanaka, New York, he's the UN correspondent from the Asahi Shimbun from Japan, but our correspondent here in New York. So I'm going to direct my first question to Catherine. Did I introduce you?
Not quite.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Catherine Cheney, senior editor for special coverage at Devex.
Thank you.
And my first question goes to Catherine and David. We're going to start with David. First of all, David, can you just define solutions journalism? I remember we were just chatting before this conversation about how we had lunch before the pandemic, 2019, and you were telling me all about solutions journalism, and I got so excited about it because it was really original, groundbreaking, and it was based on a vision that you had and your co-creator, Tina Rosenberg. You were both columnists. You had the Fix It column, I think, at the New York Times, so you were already fixes, so you were already kind of doing solutions journalism, and then you had this bold idea. So what was that idea and how are you implementing it?
Well, thank you so much. The simplest way to define solutions journalism is that it's just, as you said, it's just rigorous reporting that examines, investigates, and interrogates how people are trying to solve problems. It's not advocating for solutions. It's not meant to be feel-good. It's not meant to make your weekend better. It's really meant to illuminate this problem-solving process in a rigorous way. Historically, when journalists have covered problem-solving, the frame has been around like a kind of CNN heroes frame or a good news frame. And journalists don't consider that hard news, and in fact, it's not aspirational. It's why it doesn't get done that much. There's a lot of resistance to covering solutions because journalists feel that it's light journalism. It's not as serious. It could fall into advocacy. So it was important to sort of frame this as hard news. And so the solutions journalism framework really looks at really looking at a response to a problem. What is the evidence that this is getting results? How do we know? What are the limitations and the caveats about all the things that is not working about it, or the limitations in terms of how powerful or how it could grow, or the political problems or the financial implications? And then ultimately, what are the insights? What can we learn from this story? And how do we do this all in a really compelling storytelling format so it doesn't feel like, eat your broccoli, so that it's actually exciting, and then when people read these stories, they want to share them with, if it's an education story, they want to share it with other friends who are in education or in health or whatever. The idea, and when journalists and news organizations survey the public and ask them, what do you want from news? The number one content request is always consistently more news that helps us solve our problems. We hear this over and over again. The BBC has done this, local news organizations across the US. And the question is, why are journalists so resistant, in a way, to giving the public the product that it is requesting from the news at a time when they're also avoiding the news more and more? And I think that having a simple framework that makes people feel comfortable and also feel like this has real impact. Journalists feel like there's a phrase in America, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and it animates a lot of journalists. And the idea that our job is really to kill the germs. We're supposed to keep society clean and healthy by rooting out the bad apples. And that's how journalism works. That's how we have impact. We find bad stuff and we expose it. But that only works when the institutions are basically sound and healthy and they're working, and we just need to keep them clean and healthy. With an issue like climate change, we have to reinvent institutions in every sector. You need new ideas, and that's where you need to be covering people who are innovating, who are trying new things. And that has to become part of the knowledge sharing of the world so that we can all get smarter together faster. And journalism has an absolutely crucial role in telling that story.
Thank you. So it does actually change the whole landscape of what people would read or see or view. It wouldn't only be exposing the problems of our society and the bad guys, but actually showing what is actually working.
Very much. And if I can add one more thing, the question that I think is very important for any editor or journalist is, what is missing right now from the public's consciousness in our community or whatever that's preventing us from solving a problem? In many cases, there's not enough awareness, there's not enough outrage, there's not enough anger, there's not enough political will. That's often true. In a lot of cases, there's not enough agency. People don't know what to do. There are better ideas elsewhere that they haven't even heard of. So the question is what's missing awareness about the threat, or is what's missing agency about what to do about it? And journalists have different tools that they can use to address those different needs.
Thank you. Catherine, I know, you work at DevEx, but I believe you're also associated with the Solutions Journalism Network. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'd love to. Yeah, I think solutions journalism is a powerful approach across every beat in every region, but I especially believe in its importance when it comes to issues like the SDGs, which is why for about a decade now I've worked with DevEx. I've also worked with the Solutions Journalism Network, because I really believe in taking a solutions journalism approach to covering the kinds of issues we cover at DevEx, which is climate, but also global health and global development challenges, really the entire SDG framework. I believe in taking that approach and also working with journalists and institutions to take up that approach. At DevEx, our motto and our mission is do good, do it well. And everyone at DevEx might take that approach differently, but to me, the most effective way to help our audience of global development professionals do their work more effectively is by highlighting what's working. So we really try to take a solutions journalism approach, highlighting what's working in a rigorous way in efforts to address our global challenges. And something David once said that has really stuck with me is that when you start to take a solutions journalism approach, in these 4 pillars, response, evidence, limitations, and insights, I'm really energized by the insights aspect of this. When you start to take a solutions journalism approach, you almost become, I'm borrowing your analogy, like a bee pollinating ideas from one place to the next. And I think we are doing a disservice, we as journalists, to the world when we let those kinds of stories go untold, stories about what's working. When we start to tell those stories, those successes can be replicated place to place. And I think DevEx is the kind of platform that can do that uniquely well, because we have a dedicated audience of global development professionals. And it's our job, yes, to cover wrongdoing and what's wrong, but our audience, by and large, understands the problems. We need to show them how people are responding and really tease out those insights so that they can apply it in their work.
Thank you so much. I mean, it sounds like journalism is redefining itself. It's just before I let the two of you go and open up to everyone else, you started with this vision, with just probably a few newsrooms on board. How has solutions journalism expanded in the U.S. and around the world?
It's grown tremendously. We've our network, the Solutions Journalism Network, we've engaged with about 80,000 journalists around the world. We track solutions journalism in a database from over 2,000 news organizations. We have close to 400 trainers in 80 countries now, and that's really all demand-driven. That's all people coming to us saying, can you train me to be competent to be able to talk about solutions journalism, to bring it to my newsroom, to bring it to my community or my journalism school. So it's not really, our organization is really a very small part of it right now. It's really very much a global movement. And it's a lot of younger journalists who are reinventing new media structures in an age where no one can say what the news is going to look like 10 years from now, because everything is being reinvented in media so quickly.
Thank you, David. So my panelists, the rest of my panelists are all here because you have all incorporated solutions journalism practices into your reporting. I would like to now open the floor, and I'm going to first start with Kayode, next to me, again, Managing Director, Editor-in-Chief of Nigeria News Channel. How have you integrated solutions journalism, and do you have any example of maybe a story, or and why is it viable, and what is it working for your audiences?
First, I'll say thank you very much, Melissa. This is a great platform for us to have this conversation. When it comes to solution journalism, it's similar to one of the things that I've been a very strong advocate of for the last 25 years around the continent of Africa. But before I dig into that, the first thing I will say is solution journalism is something that journalists around the world have to be able to practice at one point. One of the things that I've been a very strong advocate of for the last 25 years. Here's the way I usually start when I have conversation like this. You cannot find solution if you don't know what the problem is.